When Lewei went to try on the suit, his phone rang. I answered the phone for him. Yi Chen's crying voice came from the other end of the phone. Lewei, today is my 28th birthday, and I was dumped. I paused with my hand holding my phone and hung up. Lewei happened to come out of the inside at this time, lowered his head and asked me who called. The tone was full of anticipation. I smiled and said it was a harassing call. I watched Livy's eyes gradually darken, and I got up to test my wedding dress. Before entering the locker room, I glanced at Lewei. Seeing him looking down at his phone, I calmly walked into the dressing room, looking at the wedding dress customized by Lewei for me. But Yi Chen's words just now echoed in his mind. When I came to my senses, I had already changed into my wedding dress. Amazing eyes. The moment I opened the curtain, I held my breath and looked forward to Lewei. I wanted to take the opportunity to tell him about my pregnancy, but the curtain was drawn and my eyes fell on the empty sofa. At that moment, there seemed to be something in my heart, falling from a height, smashed to pieces. I was stunned in place. "What are you doing?" Liwy's voice came from the door with a smile. He walked up to me with 2 bottles of water in his hand. I looked at him, and my heart suddenly felt a little dejected. When did it start? I am so worried about gains and losses in this relationship. I took the water and didn't speak. Lewei straightened the broken hair in front of my forehead for me, and said softly, "Don't worry." He said that Yi Chen was dumped and drove out. Lewei never shy away from mentioning Yi Chen to me. In his opinion, the relationship between the two of them is magnanimous. I looked down at the ring on my hand and asked, "Are you going to find her?" Lewei dropped a kiss on my forehead and said in a very soft voice, "I'll ask the driver to take you back. I'll take a look, and I'll go back soon. Wait for me to go home for dinner." I kept staring at the ring on my hand without looking up. The moment Lewei turned to leave, I grabbed him. "Otherwise, we still won't get married." Lewei was stunned, his brows furrowed, and a trace of impatience swelled up in his eyes. He felt that I was doubting the matter between him and Yi Chen again, even if he has already behaved very openly. Yi Chen and I grew up together. If something happens to her, I'm amusing you, I interrupted. "You go." I tugged at the corners of my mouth and smiled comfortingly. Liwy's face darkened, and he said coldly, "Annie, this joke is not fun." I looked up at Liwy's eyes. "You go." Repeated again, but this sentence was said to Lewei in my heart. I thought I would be very reluctant and sad, but when he really said that sentence, but there is extraordinary peace in my heart. I know it in my heart. Not marrying Lewei is not a joke. Liwy's eyes fell on my face, as if he had something to say, but the ringtone of his mobile phone interrupted his words. He didn't go any further. Just patted me on the shoulder, turned around and walked in a hurry. After Lewei left, the clerk of the bridal shop came in and asked me if I wanted to change my wedding dress. I politely said I wanted to take another look, when I was the only one left in the house. But I took out my phone and opened Yi Chen's circle of friends. The cover of Yi Chen's circle of friends was when she graduated from graduate school. It was taken at the school gate. I looked at the school emblem on it and was a little distracted. Yesterday when I was packing my luggage for my new home, I accidentally found Liwy's previous application for study abroad. He graduated from his senior year that year. Because I was going to study abroad, I broke up with him. But later, because his grandfather was ill, his family did not agree with him going abroad at this time, so he stayed in China. Our emotional crisis has been resolved. In the years that followed, Lewei treated me very well. Later, for some reason, I also gave up the idea of going abroad. Although Lewei has a boring personality, he can always take good care of my emotions. He doesn't like to post me in the circle of friends. WeChat avatars are also unchanged for thousands of years. I also at first because he didn't use my couple avatar to taste it. But when I lost my temper, Lewei handed over his salary card to me. He said that posting on moments and changing couples avatars are all superficial efforts. The sentence "where the money is, where the love is" coaxed me well, but I only found out yesterday. At that time, he applied to Yi Chen's school. The vibration of the phone pulled my thoughts back. It was Yi Chen's message. "Nia, can you sell me your engagement ring? I beg you." I put a question mark on Yi Chen. She continued. "That ring was actually designed by Lui himself for me back then. Target. The inside of the ring is engraved with EWYC. I know that this ring was designed by Lui himself. It was made by him following a famous old craftsman and learning for a month. The inscription on the inside is known only to me on Lui. At the beginning, I asked why it was engraved with CWYC instead of Z-Way. Li Wei only said that there were too many letters, and the asymmetry was not good looking. I also laughed at his obsessive-compulsive disorder, but now looking at Yi Chen's words on the phone, I suddenly felt that I was so ridiculous at the beginning. YC is Yi Chen, A is NEI. Yi Chen said, "I just want to bring back the memories between us." I stared at the screen, pondered for a long time, and finally replied, "Okay, 100,000 yuan. I'll give you the ring." Yi Chen turned almost 100,000 yuan per second. I smiled and accepted the money. But the heart feels like falling into an ice cave. The clerk of the bridal shop came in at this time to deliver snacks. I asked her to help me change my wedding dress. When the little girl reached out, she saw the ring on my hand. She exclaimed, "Your ring is so special. Is this design inspired by the Mobius ring?" "My boyfriend designed it, and I don't know either," the clerk said. "Your husband is really a romantic person. The Mobius ring represents that there is no end in love. Isn't it a never-ending love? Love that never stops?" I smiled and took off the ring. "Not mine, don't do it. Please help me send this wedding dress and ring to this address before leaving the bridal shop." I gave Yi Chen's address to the clerk. I called my brother in Cloud City. The phone was quickly connected. Anson's clear voice came. "Sister, I will go to the wedding next month. You don't have to say good things for Lui anymore." My brother has always disliked Lui. At the beginning, in order to accompany Lui to start a business in Nanchang, I rejected my uncle's suggestion to return to Cloud City. I said, "I'm not going to get married. I want to go back to Cloud City." Anson was silent for a while and didn't ask me why. He just quickly bought me a ticket back to Cloud City. The day happened to be the wedding day. Once my ticket was ready, I started packing my bags. I packed all my things and prepared to send them tomorrow morning. It was already 12 o'clock in the morning when I was busy. The meal cooked by the aunt downstairs has long been cold. I looked at the 2 sets of dishes and chopsticks that no one had touched, and sat at the dinner table a little tired. I took out my phone and subconsciously opened my circle of friends. The first one is Yi Chen. She wrote in moments, "Go around in circles. We're still here." Below are a few live pictures of the seaside. My ghost sent the gods to open it. Yi Chen's voice can be heard in the photo. She said, "Do you really want to get married? Don't you regret it?" I opened them one by one, until the penultimate picture of Ivy's voice came. "Yi Chen, we should all look forward." I calmly opened the last picture. Yi Chen's voice was mixed with the sound of waves. She said, "But I regret it." At 5 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up cold on the sofa. When I opened my eyes, Lui was carefully trying to carry me back to the bedroom. His eyes fell on the undried tears on my face, and his eyes were full of distress. I gently pushed him away. His body stiffened and he froze in place. My phone is always set to never sleep because I usually need to draw. The mobile phone screen is still stuck in Yi Chen's circle of friends. Yi Chen. She almost did something stupid. She was with her partner like that long. I interrupted Liu's rebuttal. Is she okay? Lui was stunned for a moment, as if surprised by my calmness. After all, after so many years of relationship, she won't be able to get out for a while. Come on, Liu said, picked up the blanket on the sofa and gently draped it over me. He gently took me into his arms. Yi Chen's parents are abroad and I have to watch over her for them. If you can't do the wedding, let the assistants do it. My head rested on Lai Wei's shoulder, my thoughts a little scattered. Seeing that I didn't speak, Wei hugged me tighter. We have a wedding in 2 weeks. Don't say anything about not getting married, okay? I didn't answer his question, but asked rhetorically, Li Wei, what would you do if I didn't show up at the wedding on the wedding day? Li Wei said almost without thinking, how is it possible you put so much thought into this wedding? Haven't you been looking forward to it for a long time? Yes, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. But now, I don't need it anymore. I sent most of my luggage to Cloud City. The house was instantly much empty. Li Wei also made some discoveries. It's just that he thought I had moved things to the new house. There is still a week left until the wedding. Lai Wei's friends from high school came to Nanchang from all over the world. Li Wei drank a lot of wine at the dinner. His friend called me to pick him up. When he hung up the phone, his friend did not forget to joke, sister-in-law, brother Li Wei keeps calling your name when he gets drunk and asks you to pick him up. His words made my heart feel sour. When Li Wei started his business, he had dinner every day. Because I was worried, I always waited for him to finish the dinner. Take him back in person. I think that 8 years of relationship must always be a good farewell. So I drove to the hotel. When he arrived at the box, his friend said he went to rest in the next room. I walked through the hallway to the door. Yi Chen's voice came from the closed door. Li Wei, do you dare to say that you have never been moved by me? Yi Chen's eyes were slightly red and looked at Li Wei. Lai Wei's face was hidden in the dim light of the house, and he couldn't see his expression. I've been waiting for you, Yi Chen, but you didn't come. Yi Chen looked at Li Wei in astonishment, tears running down her face. What do you mean you have waited for me? I asked my aunt to tell you to wait for me in Central Park. I prepared flowers and drinks. Yi Chen's expression changed from astonishment to heartbreak, probably because the aunt didn't succeed in telling her, so they missed each other for more than a decade. Yi Chen walked up to him and hugged Li Wei tightly. He didn't push away. Don't say it, Li Wei. I am not willing. I am not willing to let us miss it like this. Yi Chen buried her head in Lai Wei's arms and sobbed softly. I'm ready to let go. But standing at the door at this time, his hands and feet were still cold, and his heart was throbbing one after another. I didn't push open the door for a long time. Like Yi Chen, I am waiting for Lai Wei's answer. I have been with NEA for 8 years, and I am responsible for her. Lai Wei's voice was hoarse. He gently raised his hands and hugged Yi Chen back. Yi Chen, maybe we should all allow regrets to exist. I don't know how I got back in the car. Just in the car, holding the pregnancy test report, I was in a daze. Until someone knocked on the window. I looked up and found that it was Li Wei. Lai Wei's eyes were wet. I don't know if it was because of drinking or because I cried. I lowered the window. The moment Li Wei saw my face clearly, he showed a heartfelt smile. You're here to pick me up, wife. At that moment, I think he also remembered that we had worked together. Time of hard work. Li Wei got into the car and kept talking. As soon as he drinks, he will change his normal habit and become very talkative. Yi Chen said she was going to join the expedition and would go to Iceland in a while. Lai Wei's voice was a little low. I drove the car and looked ahead. There is a silence in my heart. The accident happened at this time. Yi Chen suddenly rushed out to stop our car. I slammed on the brakes, but I still hit her. This is the first time Li Wei has gaffed you like this. His eyes widened, and he almost roared NEA. What are you doing? He rushed out of the car to pick up Yi Chen, who was lying on the ground. The inertia of the brakes just made my lower abdomen hurt a little at this time. I endured the pain and hurriedly followed out of the car, looking at my face in shock. Everything before. Li Wei hugged Yi Chen's hand, still trembling incessantly. Several friends also rushed over at this time. Fortunately, Yi Chen was only slightly bruised, but Li Wei insisted on sending Yi Chen to the hospital. He didn't look at me from beginning to end, until his friend noticed my pale face and said, Sister-in-law, are you okay? Li Wei glanced at me faintly. Cold tongue, what can she do with the call she drives? He picked up Yi Chen, passed me by, and got into another car. I got back to the car alone. The pain in the abdomen is getting worse and there seems to be fluid coming from the inner thigh. Slipped. I reached out and looked at it. My hands were full of scarlet. His heart contracted suddenly. I endured the pain and pretended to be calm and located the nearest hospital. After I came out of the gynecology department, I was overwhelmed by a huge sense of powerlessness breathing. I sat alone in a chair in the hospital lobby and watched people come and go. When I was in a daze, I saw a young couple walking in the crowd supporting each other. The girl looked unhappy, as if she had a fever. It's just a fever. You don't need to come all the way back. The boy's eyes were full of distress, but he spoke with a smile. Don't worry about you alone. I was a little fascinated. In a trance, it seems to be back to the university meeting. I slept dark in the dormitory because of a high fever. Wei, who originally followed the team out of the province to play, was unable to contact me. Hit on me. I took a plane overnight and took another tour drive back to school. Waited all night downstairs in my dormitory. At that time, I thought this person was so stupid. I know I'm at school, and I still have roommates in the dormitory. What can I do? But every time I think about it later, my heart is still warm. What are you doing here? The cold voice was like a knife, cutting through the memories. I looked up. Wei helped Yi Chen stand in front of me. Wei noticed my pale face and frowned. Yi Chen was injured by you, and your complexion is not as bad as you. Yi Chen hurriedly went to take Lai Wei's hand. All the way, say a few words and he didn't mean to. It was Yi Chen who bumped into it herself. I really didn't mean to. But Wei is still blaming me inside and out. I lowered my head and silently put the diagnostic sheet in my bag. On the way back, Wei and I were silent all the way. It wasn't until he got out of the car that Wei asked me, "Is it hurt anywhere?" I went to open the door and subconsciously stroked my lower abdomen. Yi Chen. She's going to Iceland, and she may not come back in 5 years. I turned to look at Wei. The light in the yard is dim. I always feel that Wei in front of me is so far away from me. She wants me to agree to her request. What request? My voice was surprisingly calm. When we were 18 years old, we worked as a promotional model for a photo studio. She wants to revisit the old place and take another set. When Wei and Yi Chen were 18 years old, they were photographed because of their outstanding appearance. Lu invited me to take a photo. I saw that set of photos on Lai Wei's bookshelf. It was a set of wedding photos. I withdrew my gaze with all my thoughts about him. When I turned and pushed open the door, I said, "Whatever you want. I don't care anymore." The night before the wedding, Wei deliberately shirked the bachelor party his friend gave him and came back to eat with me. At the dinner table, he carefully picked up fish bones for me. "Tomorrow is the wedding. Are you nervous?" "What about you, Li Wei? Are you really ready to get married?" Li Wei was stunned by my question, and his chopsticks paused in midair. But soon he hooked the corners of his mouth and smiled reluctantly, as if he felt uncomfortable being seen through. "Haven't we been preparing for this day for a long time?" I looked at Wei deeply. Finally he lowered his head and smiled. "Yes, that meal became the most silent meal between us. In the middle of the night, Wei received a call. Wei thought I was asleep. So when answering the phone in the living room, he didn't deliberately lower the volume. "Are you going to Iceland tomorrow? Are you really not coming to my wedding?" Yi Chen, at least see each other before leaving. There was a sound of doors opening and closing at the entrance. I watched Wei drive out before he even had time to put on his coat. Wait until the car is far away. I took out my luggage and put the pregnancy test report on the table. I took a taxi to the airport. On the way to the airport, I blocked all of Lai Wei's contact information. I was going to delete Yi Chen, but I accidentally clicked into her circle of friends. She wrote in moments, "I want to appear in front of you like this. This time I will be brave." The attached picture is the wedding dress and ring I sent. Perhaps tomorrow's wedding will still be attended by the bride. When Wei arrived at Yi Chen's house, It was almost 12 o'clock. While waiting for Yi Chen to open the door, he kept thinking that if Yi Chen hadn't gone abroad at the beginning, will there be a different result now? But he just wanted to think about it. He and Ni have been in a relationship for 8 years. He is responsible for this 8-year relationship. It was not easy for her to accompany him through too much. When his work was at a low point, it was Ni who never gave up to encourage him, support him. While bearing his negative emotions, he still took care of him meticulously. That's when he felt, Ni will be a good wife and a good mother. Therefore, today he wants to say goodbye to Yi Chen. Say goodbye to the promise of youth. After tonight, they all have to look forward. But the moment the door opened, when the strong little Goas Hai kissed the soil, Yi Chen hooked his neck and kissed him. Lu Wei still forgot everything. He wanted to just this moment. It's once on this night. From tomorrow onwards he will be Nia's groom, Nia's husband. But when this kiss ends, when the two hugged each other and gasped, Li Wei noticed the wedding dress Yi Chen was wearing. The moment I recognized the wedding dress, his mind went blank, and it seemed as if a basin of cold water had extinguished him. All desires. At that moment he was completely awake. Why are the wedding dresses and rings with you? Li Wei's voice was trembling. He desperately suppressed the uneasy thought in his heart. This thought has been buried deep in his heart since many days ago, and Ni began to become indifferent and distant from him. He just felt arrogant. It was Ni who became anxious because he was going to get married. All Wei, do you really want us to miss it like this? Li Wei looked at Yi Chen deeply. In the end, he pushed her away. We can't, it shouldn't be like that. Yi Chen's eyes were red, and he asked word by word, then why do you still give me hope? Lu Wei froze in place. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't make any sound. All Wei, when you heard that I was going to Iceland, you came to see me without hesitation. Yi Chen held Li Wei's hand tightly. The feeling of that moment is the most real. Can you really leave me behind and choose to marry Ni? Lu Wei slowly lowered his eyes. Left. I'm sorry lightly, and then rushed out of the door. Lu Wei got into the car and stepped on the accelerator, feeling uneasy. When I got home, the house was dark. He had the illusion for a moment that the house seemed much emptier than he had imagined. He constantly comforted himself in his heart. But it was just an illusion. But his steps towards the bedroom became heavier and heavier. The call stuck in my throat was too long to be blurted out. He was afraid of waking her up from her sleep. But what is even more frightening is that no one responds to him. Until I opened the door and saw that there was no one on the bed, it was hanging. The heart finally broke at this moment. He took out his mobile phone and called Nia over and over again. But there was always a busy sound on the other end of the phone. He seemed to have been drained of all his strength. As he collapsed on the sofa, his eyes fell on the one on the table, on the pregnancy test report. The phone fell out of his hand and fell to the ground. The second day back in Cloud City, Anson came to pick me up to see my uncle and aunt. When he got into the car, Anson frowned slightly and asked, "Why is your face so bad?" I didn't want to answer, so I changed the subject. "Opposite where I live. Why hasn't that villa been sold for 5 or 6 years? Yun Cheng has a property left to me by my parents. Anson asked someone to clean it for me early. When drinking coffee in the yard in the morning, I noticed that the villa opposite seemed to have been abandoned for a long time." Anson held the steering wheel and hesitated for a moment before replying. "There was a murder in that house. It was a haunted house, although it was cheap. But it just can't be sold." Anson seemed worried that he would scare me and was reluctant to continue. My aunt asked someone to cook a table of meals early. After eating, Anson and his uncle went to the study. My aunt pulled me to the small balcony to talk about myself. But as soon as she opened her mouth, her eyes turned red in an instant. Her eyes were on my stomach. Tears flowed down her face like that. My aunt was not in good health when she was young, got pregnant 5 times and miscarried 5 times. In the end, I had no choice but to adopt Anson. So the moment I walked in the door, my aunt could tell at a glance that I had a miscarriage. Does Xiao Wei know about the child? I smiled and shook my head. My aunt said with some indignation. Shallow Wei is also a person who has the wrong brain and is about to get married. So, he went to take wedding photos with other women? I was surprised how my aunt knew about this. My aunt only then realized that she slipped her mouth. It was Anson who told us. The aunt sighed as she spoke, and said in a hesitant tone, "You and Anson grew up together, in fact. I look at it as a mother. You can do it, Anson, you." I clenched the teacup in my hand and looked at the roses in the yard downstairs. I remembered that there was also such a rose in front of Qiu Mountain. Li Wei likes outdoor sports. He took me to Qiu Mountain. That year he took me to the mountains to see the stars. We stayed at a hotel in the mountains. At night, watched the stars on the hotel terrace. At that time when I looked up, I saw a bright star. Li Wei, who has never been good at talking about love, whispered to me in my ear. I am his only lover in this life. My aunt's voice interrupted my memories. The aunt hesitated for a moment before continuing. "Anyway, your parents left early, and your uncle and I are also old. Without anyone around. We can't let go. If it is Anson, I can take care of you, aunt I interrupted her, in a soft tone. I have always regarded Anson as my younger brother. As soon as I finished speaking, I noticed that my aunt's expression was stagnant and her eyes were overlooked. I fell behind me. I was stunned for a moment. My heart sank for no reason, and I slowly turned around. Outside the glass door, there was a person standing. Anson wears a loose V-neck sweater and stands in the sun. He looked at us with the same smile on his face. That smile, like a person who is used to hiding his emotions, disguises it quietly. "What are you talking about?" His voice was as calm as usual. The aunt was obviously a little embarrassed and hurriedly handed him the teacup. "What else can we talk about, of course? It's your business." Anson took the teacup and moved naturally as if the conversation just now had nothing to do with him. His fingers sipping the tea tightened slightly for a moment, and the joints looked particularly clear in the sun. "What is there to talk about my business? Or my sister's affairs are more important?" His eyes fell on my face, light and fluttering. I lowered my head unconsciously, and a thin layer of sweat came out of my palms. He clearly heard what I said to my aunt, but he didn't say anything, as if he didn't hear anything. He just sat there, laughing and chatting with his aunt, until my aunt said that there was still soup stewing downstairs and wanted to take a look. She got up and went downstairs. At this time, Anson took out chocolate from his pocket and handed it to me. Chocolate is my favorite brand. All my habits and preferences, Anson knows. Just like I know his feelings. "What are you going to do next?" "Open a gallery and go abroad for further study after the new year." Anson's eyes darkened. "After a long time," he said. "It's good." I got up and walked to him, thinking about what to say to lighten the mood. But when he got up, his eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar figure standing outside the courtyard gate. I was stunned for 10 seconds. I was sure that it was Li Wei. Li Wei's eyes were black, and his white shirt was wrinkled. The whole person looked like he hadn't slept for a long time. His embarrassed appearance made the bouquet of flowers in his hand more and more exquisite. "Don't wait for me to react." Anson next to him suddenly went crazy and jumped over from the balcony on the second floor. My brain roared, and my hands and feet were sore and numb at that moment. Although the floor is not high, but I was still frightened by Anson's legs. Anson landed steadily. His explosiveness was very good, and he ran to the door the moment he landed. When the door opened, Anson's fist greeted Li Wei's face. When Li Wei dodged, the flower in his hand fell to the ground. As soon as he got angry, he scuffled with Anson. "Li Wei, are you worthy of my sister?" Li Wei remained silent, but he did not allow Anson to act recklessly. "It's going to be a wedding, and you still run to take wedding photos with other women. There is no such humiliation as you." Li Wei's fist stayed in midair. His face turned pale instantly. One was in a daze and was punched by Anson heavily. The corners of his mouth were bloody, and his eyes were empty. He slowly raised his head and looked at me in a daze. Anson stepped on the unusual bouquet with a foot, and his tone was cold. "Get out. Don't let me see you again." The moment the door closed, Wei stood up from the ground suddenly. He slammed the door hard. "NEA. Can we talk about NEA?" Everyone in the room looked at me with a solemn expression. I was enveloped by a great sense of powerlessness and walked back to the living room in silence. After dinner, it started to rain outside the house. I said goodbye to my aunt and them. Anson drove me home. As soon as the car drove out of the gate, I saw Wei Pestle in the heavy rain. He stood there wet, embarrassed like someone who had lost everything. The moment we recognized our car, he chased after him. He slammed the car window hard, his eyes full of pleading. Wei saw that the car had no intention of stopping. He ran directly to the car and stopped our car with his body. Anson's face darkened, and he said in a cold tone, "It's really haunting." Just as Anson was about to open the door, I grabbed him. "I'll go talk to him." I got out of the car. Cold rain came to my face, and the biting chill woke me up instantly. Wei's voice was hoarse. "NEA, I admit that I did hide Yi Chen's matter, and I promised her to take a wedding dress, not because I still loved her, but because I was ashamed. Guilty." I looked at him calmly and asked, "Guilty? So, is guilt more important than love? Because we are responsible for our 8-year relationship, so you feel guilty about her?" I sneered in my heart. Wei took my hand in a panic. No. Yi Chen and I used to be in love with each other, but that was in the past, and missing it was missing. I've let go of her. I just want to go on with you now." I withdrew my hand indifferently and said with a smile, "You let her go, but I've already let go of you." I used to think that it would be difficult to let go of this 8-year relationship. Till later I found that it was more difficult to let go of my obsession with love. True love is mutual achievement, not consumption. I handed the umbrella in my hand to Wei. The moment I turned around, Wei hugged me from behind me. "NEA, I beg you. You can't do this to me." Child to child. "Son, do you want our children to be born without a father?" Wei's words struck my mind like thunder. A tingling pain surged in my heart. I smiled bitterly. "Wei, the child was gone as early as the day you sent Yi Chen to the hospital." As soon as I finished speaking, I easily broke free from his arms. Wei's hands hung helplessly, as if he had lost all his strength. His lips trembled slightly, but he couldn't make any sound. I looked at his appearance, but there was no trace of happiness in my heart. He muttered in the rain and repeated, "It's gone." Gone? His voice was hoarse, and his eyes were full of disbelief and self-blame. I closed my eyes and tried to force the soreness in my eyes back. "Wei, leaving you, I realized that I have always been waiting for you, but you have always chosen others, and now I have finally learned. I won't wait any longer." The rain is still falling. Wei knelt in the muddy water, embarrassed like a helpless child. Some feelings can only stay in the past. On that day, I left my 8 years of relationship and my last attachment to Wei in that heavy rain. After that, I didn't see Wei again. Because I was busy, I gradually stopped thinking of him. My gallery was well organized. Anson used his connections to introduce me to many people in the circle. And he came to me with the blueprint for the gallery. "I am preparing materials for going abroad." When Anson put down his things, he asked me, "The house across from you is sold?" I looked up from a pile of materials. "Today, the owner group is talking about this matter." "Yes, it was sold 2 days ago," Anson said in surprise. "What kind of person with a very hard life dared to live in a haunted house?" I smiled, non-committal. Anson took out the dishes and chopsticks from the kitchen familiarly and dirged. "Mom made you a tonic soup. You drink it while it's hot." I put down my hand and took the bowl. Anson's undisguised gaze looked at me persistently. "Next year, the company will expand its business in Europe." I looked at him suspiciously. He looked away in a panic, but out of the corner of his eye, he was still secretly looking at me. I know, he wants me to ask him which country it is, but even if you don't ask. But I know very well in my heart. Suddenly there was a noise outside the house. The owner group in the mobile phone also became lively at the same time. Oh my God, there was a bride in a wedding dress who proposed in front of the haunted house. Girls propose in wedding dresses, whether to propose or force. The man who was proposed to him wouldn't have bought a haunted house to hide from this girl. It's a big deal. Tomorrow's headlines are all there. Men are avoiding women. Hey, it's crazy pursuit. Hiding in a haunted house. Hey, it's been a long time. Someone in the group posted a secretly taken photo of the bride. The bride's wedding dress was unexpectedly familiar. I opened the photo. Yi Chen's face appeared on the screen. I didn't expect that Wei would buy the house across from me. I didn't expect it. Yi Chen would chase after Yun Sheng. But none of this matters to me. Towards the end of the year, I held my own art exhibition. Henson told me that my work home was bought by a mysterious man at a high price. He asked me curiously, "This painting is very different from the style of your other works." I thought it would. Very niche. I just smiled and didn't answer. That painting was actually painted when I hadn't met Wei yet. It is what I think my family will look like. I once fantasized about being in a house like that with my beloved. Spend the rest of your life together. But over the years, I have long stranded that dream. On Chinese New Year's Eve, I received a call from Lai Wei's mother. On the other end of the phone, her voice was tired and anxious. She pleaded, "Nia, Xiao Wei hasn't contacted us for a long time. I'm very worried about him. Can you go see him?" I wanted to refuse. But Lai Wei's mother's voice became more and more low. "Nia, Xiao Wei, although he did something wrong, he really loves you. He knows. I'm sorry for you, and he regrets it." There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment. She added softly, "Nia, your children." He also felt a lot of pain in his heart. I squeezed my phone and interrupted her in a low voice. "His pain is also his own fault. I'll go see him, but that doesn't mean I'll forgive him." After hanging up the phone, I knocked on the door opposite, only to find that the door was closed. There is no lock. I walked through the yard and into the house. The moment I pushed the door in, I was greeted by an uncomfortable smell of alcohol. The living room was a mess, and empty wine bottles were scattered on the ground. I looked around and my eyes stopped on the wall. The painting I bought was hung there. My heart suddenly froze. It turned out that Wei bought it. Looking at the surrounding decoration style, it was so familiar that it gave me a chill. Every detail and furnishing is exactly the same as the home I once imagined. The same. At this time, footsteps were heard upstairs. I looked up and faced Lai Wei's drunken and confused face. He held on to the handrail of the stairs and looked at me in a daze, revealing himself after a while. A trance-like smile. "Nia, is it you?" His voice was hoarse, with a heavy nasal voice, as if he had suppressed the pain for a long time. "Am I dreaming again?" He staggered down and choked up. "Nia, I beg you, please don't leave. Can you forgive me? I have cut off contact with Yi Chen. That wedding dress, I want it back for you. I know it's wrong. I will change it." I looked at him, and the complex emotions that had just surged in my heart eventually turned into indifference. I took a step back, avoiding his outstretched hand. "Wei, do you know the origin of this house you bought?" He was stunned, and a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. "This is a haunted house." I looked directly at him, my tone cold. The original owner married his girlfriend, but did not get a certificate. And then the original owner went out to do business. Met a new person, got married with the new leader outside, and became a legal couple. Lai Wei's face was pale, and he opened his mouth, but he couldn't say anything. "You decorated this place into the way I dreamed." I turned around and glanced at the paintings on the wall. The voice was tired and sarcastically said, "Liu Wei, don't you think our relationship is like this house? It seems beautiful, but it is all based on absurdity and pain." The pain in Lai Wei's eyes gradually deepened. He staggered back and said in a dumb voice, "Do we really have no chance?" I stopped pushing the door and looked back at him. "Li Wei, you have Yi Chen in your heart, but you choose to marry me because of the so-called responsibility. You hurt me and hurt her, forcing yourself to make the right decision with self-righteous reasons. Li Wei, you are really too selfish." Li Wei's pupils contracted suddenly, and he froze in place. I didn't look at him anymore and walked straight out. There was only a dead silence left behind him. After the new year, I left Yuncheng and went abroad. In a strange land, I found myself again. I devoted myself to my work, held several art exhibitions, and gained recognition. Everything that used to make me uneasy and painful in a regular life, it also seems to become less important. Anson always uses business expansion as an excuse to go abroad frequently. Occasionally, it brings me some news in China. I heard that Yi Chen later reconciled with her boyfriend when the two got married. Li Wei also went. I heard that Li Wei had a fight with the groom at Yi Chen's wedding. Later, Li Wei was alone wherever he went, frequently going in and out of the hospital's psychology department. Anson later stayed directly in my country. I don't know when it started. He slowly seeped into my life. When I was busy with work, I silently arranged everything for me. In times of confusion, give me some useful advice. That silent and solid support, like an invisible wall, gave me protection, but did not force me to accept it. But I don't dare to believe anything easily. I may have been moved. I was like the wind blowing across the lake, fleeting. The doorbell outside the house rang at this time. Anson's voice came from outside the door. "Annie, go out for a walk." I don't know when it started. We got into the habit of walking. I grabbed my coat and ran out. In the afterglow of the sunset, I looked up at Anson. "Haven't you called my sister for a long time?" Anson's eyes greeted the sunset, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He didn't speak. The icy Pacific breeze blew through the towering buildings and whizzed past us. At this time Anson spoke. "This year's Chinese New Year. Let's go home together." I buried half of my face in my scarf and responded vaguely, "Okay, let's go home together." End of full text.